All right, today we are jumping into a series of stories from the Gospel of Luke that, honestly, they feel a bit like riddles. We're going to meet some really proud saints and some surprisingly humble sinners, persistent widows, even an unjust judge. All of these characters, they're like pieces of a puzzle, and they're all building towards one big, challenging question about faith, justice, and what it really takes to find the right path. So let's get into it.
So this is the big one, right? The question that hangs over everything we're about to talk about. What is the path to the kingdom of God? Now, it sounds simple enough, but as you're about to see, the answers we find in these stories, well, they're pretty much designed to flip our expectations completely upside down about what it means to be righteous, what to do with wealth, and even what it means to truly see.
So our first step on this path isn't even about what you do. It's all about attitude. We're looking at the fundamental mindset you need to even start the journey. It's not some checklist of good deeds. It's something way deeper. It's about the state of your heart. And the first major clash we see is between pride and humility.
To really drive this point home, Jesus tells a story. So picture this. The scene is the temple, the most sacred place you can imagine for Jewish worship. And our two main characters could not be more different. On one hand, you've got a Pharisee, a highly respected religious leader, basically the poster child for righteousness. And on the other, a tax collector, a guy everyone saw as a sellout and a major sinner.
And wow, when they pray, you see exactly what's in their hearts. The Pharisee's prayer is basically his spiritual resume. You know, he's listing off all his accomplishments, thanking God he's not like that sinner over there. But the tax collector, he can't even look up to heaven. His prayer is just short, desperate, and painfully honest. God, have mercy on me, a sinner. That's it. And here's the punchline, the great reversal that just turns the whole social order on its head. Jesus says it was the tax collector, not the Pharisee, who went home right with God. The big takeaway here? The path isn't paved with a list of your achievements. It's paved with a humble and honest heart.
You know, this whole theme of humility isn't just in stories. It plays out in real life right after this. People start bringing their little babies to Jesus, and his own disciples, of all people, try to shoo them away. They're acting like gatekeepers, like Jesus is too important to be bothered. And in that moment, they're acting just like that Pharisee, and they are completely missing the point. But Jesus' response is just profound. He says the kingdom belongs to those who are like little children. So what does that mean? It means coming to God with total trust, with no arrogance, with a kind of dependent humility, which is the exact opposite of the proud Pharisee and, yeah, in that moment, the opposite of his own disciples. Okay, so if the right attitude is humility, what's the actual price of entry? What actions, what sacrifices does this journey demand? Well, the next couple of stories dig into two key things: persistence and the willingness to just let go. So here we meet another totally unlikely hero, a widow. Now in that society, she had zero power, zero status, and she goes before this unjust judge, a guy who straight up admits he doesn't fear God or care about people. But she has one tool in her arsenal, her persistence. She just keeps showing up day after day demanding justice.
And check out the judge's reasoning here. He doesn't have some big change of heart. He's not suddenly filled with compassion. Nope. He caves simply because she won't stop bothering him. The story then asks a really powerful question. If even a corrupt, uncaring judge gives in to persistence, how much more will a just and loving God respond to the cries of his people?
Now we get the other side of the coin, letting go. A rich, respected ruler comes to Jesus. He's a good guy. He says he's kept all the commandments his whole life. But when he asks what else he needs to do, Jesus hits him with this four-step challenge that strikes right at the heart of his identity and his security. And the ruler, he just walks away sad because he can't let go of his great wealth. This leads to one of the most famous and intense metaphors in the entire Bible. The point isn't that money itself is evil. It's that our attachment to wealth, the security, the identity it gives us, can become this massive wall, the ultimate barrier to the kind of radical trust in God that the kingdom requires. So this brings us to our third big theme. The path to the kingdom requires a special kind of vision. And I'm not talking about what you can see with your eyes or figure out with your brain. We're talking about a deeper kind of perception, one that is rooted entirely in faith. Okay, this next moment is just stunning. Jesus tells his closest followers as plainly as possible that he's going to Jerusalem, where he'll be killed and then resurrected. I mean, he couldn't be clearer.
And yet, the text says the meaning was hidden from them. They were right there, they heard the words, but they were completely spiritually blind to the truth.
And then, immediately after that, we meet a man who is physically blind. As Jesus walks by, this beggar cries out, calling him Son of David. Now that's not just a name, it was a title for the Messiah. So get this, the man who cannot see with his eyes sees who Jesus is more clearly than anyone else there, including the disciples.
And just like that persistent widow, he refuses to be silenced. The crowd, acting like those gatekeepers again, tries to shut him down. But his faith is just too desperate, too loud. He knows this is his one shot, so he shouts even louder, showing this incredible persistence that comes from a deep, genuine belief.
And I want you to notice the powerful connection Jesus makes here. He doesn't say, my power has healed you. He says, your faith has healed you. Think about that. The beggar's spiritual sight, his ability to see the truth of who Jesus was, is what unlocked his physical sight. He saw with faith first, and then he could see the world.
All right, so our journey, which has been full of these parables and personal moments, is now leading up to a big, dramatic, public confrontation. We finally arrived in Jerusalem, at the very heart of the religious establishment, the temple itself.
This is an incredible act of authority. Jesus doesn't just walk in and start preaching. No, he takes action. He physically disrupts the whole commercial operation going on in the temple courts, flipping over tables, driving out the merchants. He saw a place of worship being exploited, and he shut it down.
And here's his justification, quoting the ancient prophets. He accuses the authorities of turning a sacred space, a place meant for prayer and connection with God, into a place of greed and extortion, a den of robbers. This action is a physical demonstration of the very justice he's been talking about this whole time.
So, when we pull all these threads together, the path to the kingdom starts to look a lot clearer, doesn't it? It's not about your status or trying to be perfect. It demands the humility of that tax collector, the persistent faith of the widow, the kind of sacrifice the rich ruler couldn't make, and the spiritual sight of a blind beggar.
And we end almost where we begin. After telling that story about the persistent widow, Jesus poses this haunting question. And it's not really a statement of doubt. It's a challenge. After laying out the path so clearly, the question gets turned back on us, and it echoes through time. Will this kind of faith, this humble, persistent, seeing kind of faith be found? That's a question worth thinking about long after this is over.